District Office. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon's meeting. Without further ado, I just want to get an indication. Is our Memnora, is our presentation flighted?
Yes, Mr. Abdullah.
Brilliant, thank you. So I take it that by that response, I'm also audible. So allow me to just put this thing into presentation mode. And I'm hoping it's now bigger. Colleagues, our content training for today is based on the following. So we have the vision and mission statement, NS targets. I won't go through all of them. And as per normal, colleagues, we've got about 20 slides that is pertinent to grade 4, more or less about 20 slides. But please, I'm not going to rush through it, but I'm trying to go as fast as possible so that I don't waste too much of time. In the same token, colleagues, I would like to request that if you need to stop me at any time, Memnora will recognize hands. So at any time, if you feel that you need to stop me or ask a clarity-seeking question or make input, please, you are welcome to do so. I would like to ask you to not unmute yourself until Memnora has recognized you so that we don't have too many interruptions. There will be, at the end of this session, you'll see there, number 11 says question and answer and feedback session. So if there's nothing really pressing, you can keep all your questions or your clarity-seeking questions and even your inputs, you can leave it for then. Otherwise, if there's something that's really pressing on any specific slide, you are welcome to stop me and we'll take it from there. So Memnora, thank you so much. You'll be recognizing hands for this afternoon and admitting people. And if there's anybody else that can admit, please go ahead and do that so that we don't get too many interruptions. Thank you, colleagues. So based on the vision and mission, this is in observing protocol. We just like to remind and refresh ourselves that our vision is every learner feels valued and inspired in our innovative education system. And in the mission, this mission should tie in with what we have at schools, being committed to provide functional and modern schools that enable quality teaching and learning, to protect and promote the right of every learner to quality, equitable, and relevant education. So you'll see that those are the only two slides that I'm going to read, and the few next, I will just be glancing through them, giving you the salient points. Colleagues, if you haven't already heard, we've had a matric slogan for as long as I can remember. So it's hashtag 1904580. Basically what it means is that hashtag 1 means that as our districts, Joburg Central, we want to try and attain first position overall in the entire Gauteng. All right. And then obviously with a 90% pass rate, blah, 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 blah. But what we would like to do is now we would like to just, copy that slogan in a way where we have it pertinent to Nstech. And this is something that we need to understand. So in terms of Nstech, we're saying that hashtag 185. 185 is very, very simple, is that we would like to see our subject, natural sciences and technology, to be the best performing subject. At the moment, we are very far away from that. In fact, I'm quite embarrassed to say that we are one of the poorer performing subjects. Then obviously 85 is actually our target, where we'd like 85% of our learners to pass overall, but we're also saying that all our learners should pass with at least 50%. So that's some of the targets that we're hoping to achieve going forward, 2022, 2023 and beyond. And obviously these targets will change as and when we try and achieve them. So colleagues, this is, our training sessions are always have some background information. And this is some of the observations that between myself and Memnora we've made over the past 2 terms. Very, very, very important, colleagues, is that the RATPs that we are using at the moment, remember, it's the recovery ATPs. And this is not from Abdullah, it's not from Nora, it's not from the Joburg Central District Office. This is from the provincial office, colleagues, and this is policy. We have to implement it. What we are finding, myself and Mem Nora, when we do school visits, is that many of our colleagues are still not adhering to the RATP. And we know this. We know this why? Because of the second bullet. We checking lesson plans where the dates have been either erased because they were written in pencil or they've been terpexed. The problem is that it's not even last year or year before last. It's 2018 and 2017. Colleagues, those lesson plans and that RATP are not pertinent to what we are supposed to be doing now during this. I would like to say post-COVID, because I'm hoping COVID is now, we are at the tail end of COVID. But yet, please understand that our RATPs that we are using at the moment, they are still in place up until 2023. They are going to only be revised in 2023, and then we will be given new policy to go 2023 and beyond. So please, colleagues, this is an appeal. We've been seeing this in a number of schools where when we do visit the schools and we look at the RATP and we look at the lesson plans, there's no synergy. There's absolutely no synergy because teachers are recycling what they had pre-COVID. And it's just, and colleagues, you know what, I don't want to, it's like I'm a stuck record. I've been saying this over and over and over and over. We cannot rely on what was done last year and 2020, because remember, the situation is very, very different. In 2020, when we were in lockdown, we saw our children once every 2 days, once every 3 days, and I don't have to go on and on. The same thing happened last year. In as much as we returned to school full time after the second half of the year, or whatever it may be, there were still gaps. There were still gaps. Colleagues, we need to understand that even the third bullet, the provincial lesson plans, we cannot just put them in the file for malicious compliance. We can't just put them there and then expect that when Abdullah and Nora gets there, that we will accept the provincial lesson plans as your own, because they do not tie in with what is in the RATP, and they do not tie in with the evidence found in the lesson plans. I'm going to talk about this a lot more in the coming slides, so I'm just going to go over this one. The other very, very important concept that we just seem to not be able to get around, colleagues, is our SBA task. That's the last bullet on the page. What we're realizing is that we're giving our learners SBA tasks, our school-based assessment tasks, whether it be the mini-PET or whether it be a test. As outlined on page 67, we are not following the breakdown of the cognitive levels. Colleagues, I can tell you, and Mr. Henrik from Puta Lushaka will tell you the same thing. Mem Aisha from Model Primary, and Mem from St. Ives will tell you how difficult it is to set a paper, or rather how easy it is to set a paper, but how difficult it is when you have to submit that paper for moderation to the provincial office. We've been doing this for the past 2 or 3 or 4 years. Colleagues, I must tell you that when our papers go through to the provincial moderators, they check every single thing, and I was privy to that information just last week. Colleagues, they tear our papers to shreds. They tear our papers to shreds, knowing that we did not abide by 50% lower order, 35% middle order, and 15% higher order questions. So this gives us a very different idea of how our children are doing. If you're giving your children level 1 or lower level type order questions, your entire paper is out of 60 marks, and 60 marks out of 60 is level 1. True and false, match column A or column B, define the term, provide the term, fill in the missing words, label diagrams. All of those are lower level order type questions. So these simple recall questions where you're not asking the children to apply their knowledge whatsoever. So when you say your children are doing well, they're all getting good marks. When it comes time when they have to write the provincial paper, you realize that the children are failing because they don't have the experience of how to answer. I will go through this a little bit later as well, colleagues. These are some of the other observations that we've also made, is that there is a non-utilization of resources. So colleagues, and I'm talking now specifically to the schools that have been given science kits or that procured science kits. I'm also talking to all schools, because between myself and Mem Nora, we have uploaded a lot of material and resources onto our Google Drive. And I've sent that Google Drive link to all colleagues on my database. And I will do that again at the end of this week. Colleagues, our appeal to you is we need to make science a real life experience-based subject. If we just continue to give them writing and writing and writing, children are going to hate natural sciences. And in as much as you're saying that you may be a new teacher or you may be an inexperienced Nstech teacher, all of those type of things, it's important for us to skill ourselves, colleagues. It's important for us to know content, number one, and to know how to present those lessons well, so that it becomes interesting for the children to learn. The other problem, and you can only do that, colleagues, you can only do that is if you plan and prepare well, and if you plan using your resources. So it's senseless to have a very fancy lesson plan outlining that you will use a data projector and you will tell the children to go to Google link and all of those things. But in reality, when you come to the classroom, you know that the only thing that you do is stand out in front of the class and give the children writing exercises to do. That, colleagues, is not acceptable. And if we look at the third bullet, the written activities are not of a good standard. Now, why do we say this? Merely asking the children to rewrite what is in the textbook is an exercise in futility, colleagues. Honestly, we cannot tell the children, guys, look on page 23, look at the heading, write the heading down, write the first paragraph, and then you give the children 2 questions and you expect that to be a quality for a written task. So these are some of the things that we need to think about. And then oftentimes you punish the children by giving them, if they came to the class, they started making noise. So instead of writing 1 paragraph or 3 or 4 sentences from the board, you make them write the whole page from the textbook. Colleagues, again, I mean, everybody knows how to write. All your children know how to write. And writing for any child, including a teacher, is punishment. So please try and avoid, long drawn out writing activities. We would expect that we would rather you have practical tasks and give them activity sheets that they have to fill in and not write too much. The last 2, colleagues, are very, very, very important. Last 2 are very important: analysis of results. At the end of every term, beginning of the next term, it is important for us to look at our results to see how many children are on the different levels. So we all know that our pass rate is broken up into 7 levels, starting from 0 going on to 7. So 0 to 29 is level 1, and 30 to 39 is level 2, and those type of things. If you don't do your analysis of results, you will never know how many of your children are progressing and at what level. And if that is the case, then how are you going to have your revision or support or intervention strategies or activities that are going to help those learners? So colleagues, this is also, as much as I've highlighted it here, colleagues, understand that it is not a district mandate. It is more an appeal to you to say, guys, you need some direction in terms of how you teach and what you teach. So in terms of assessment for learning, you cannot go to the next lesson of content if what you are teaching today, the children didn't understand. Because you'll see just now, and I mean, I don't have to be telling you this, you are busy with a certain topic, and generally, every topic that we got in Nstech lasts anywhere from 1 week to 2.5 weeks sometimes. So it's never possible for you to get the information and the content across to the children within a period of 2 or 3. Generally, our topics last for the whole week. So how will you know that you can carry on with next week's work or the following topic or subtopic for that matter if you didn't test the children the previous topic? So this is what we call assessment for learning, colleagues. Is how much do they know and what do we need to do in order for them to learn more? So before you move on to the next lesson, you need to know what they've already learned, right? And then you get assessment of learning. And assessment of learning means the marks that they get at the end of the term. How well did they learn? Okay, so it's very important to know that assessment for learning takes place almost on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be formal, but you need to know how many of your children are with you so that you don't leave anybody behind. Colleagues, I can't stress this enough. So analysis of results, you'll have it on a weekly, daily basis to speak to how you plan for the next few lessons, but then you also have your term analysis results to see how many learners, as per our target that I spoke to you earlier on, how many of them are achieving more than 50%, how many achieving less than 50%, how many of them are achieving between 0 and 40% for that matter, who are the ones that are failing, you know. So these are all of the things that you need to take into account, especially when you are doing your planning and preparation. So colleagues, here we go. This is all part of what we're going to be teaching for the next 2 terms. And you'll see it for grade 4. It's all new work. It's all new work. These are the children that have never been taught these things before. And this actually speaks to what we're doing as we speak. So we have just today started our 3rd week of proper teaching for this term. And by right, according to this educator reporting tool for grade 4, we should be doing energy and energy transfer. That's why I've highlighted it in blue there, colleagues. All right. So what colleague, may I ask you to mute yourself unless you have some input to make? Thank you. I will continue. So when we look at energy and energy transfer, colleagues, why did I highlight it in blue? For a very simple reason, is I want to show you how we've broken this up. So whether you look at your provincial plans or your own lesson plans or whatever it may be, this is ideally how it should be broken up. So if we look at energy and energy transfer, you'll see there this one supposed to only take half a week. And why is it half a week? Because we've already done the introductions and a lot of practical tasks for the past 2 weeks. So what is it that is expected from here? So if we look at this next slides, here we go. So if you look at the, sorry, I'll just allow me to go back one more or 2 slides rather. Right, so if you see, it says investigate the input and output energy of appliances. Example, kettle, stove, torch, radio, iron, fan, hair dryer, car, bicycle, drum, etc., etc., etc. And then I've written there at the bottom, this or the above topic can be separated into a number of smaller topics. So colleagues, this is what we're looking for. The most important part of this entire topic is input and output energy of appliances. You agree with me? Thank you. So if we go to the next slide, now look at what I've done. Today's date is there. This is what should appear in your file or in your lesson preparation. Input and output of appliances. Now remember, we said there are many appliances. For today, we are only talking about the kettle and the iron. Now, what is it that I want to find in the children's books? When you go to, the children are going to write the date, highlighted in yellow, and they're going to put the very same date and a heading that's in blue as well as in green. So this is what we call a content reference. A content reference. So you have your own content reference to say, where did you get your information and your content from? And in the children's textbooks that they are allowed to take part, take home rather, where will they find that information? Are we together so far, colleagues? Now look on the left-hand side where it says teacher activities. Explain in as much detail as possible. Write down the content, the skills, the vocabulary that you intend teaching for that period. Include all questions, activity sheets, memos, marking guidelines. So for every question that you give your children in the class to do as an informal activity, there should be an answer. Why? Because when they do the corrections the next day, it is clear cut and it's transparent. There's no ambiguity where if the child got it right, the child got it right, and they should know which are the correct answers or model answers and which not. The last bullet there at the bottom, you are welcome to use the provincial lesson plans. Colleagues, if you can find the one that deals with the topic that is outlined in the RATPs. And for this one, what is the topic? Input and output appliances, the kettle and the iron. So you can't put 10 lesson plans from the provincial lesson plans to make your file look big like you're doing lots of work. No, colleagues. Go and find the one or the two lesson plans that fit with that topic and then include it. And remember, again, those lesson plans were from pre-COVID. So they do not include everything, right? You are welcome to add your own activity sheets. You're welcome to add your own investigation sheets, your own practical tasks, as long as you include those worksheets. So when we go into the children's books, we not only find the date, the heading, and the content reference, but we also find the activity sheets that you have included into your lesson plans. If I'm going too fast, colleagues, please stop me at any time. So how does this help us now? This is only the first lesson for this week. Look at how it translates into the rest of this week. The very same topic on the 2nd of August, input and output of appliances. Now we're talking about a torch and a radio. The next day, input and output of appliances. And what are we talking about now? Bicycle and a drum. The next lesson, again, same thing, input and output, but what are we talking about? The hair dryer in the car. So you give them those diagrams, those input, process, and output diagrams, or what is the input energy and what is the output energy. But for each of them, it's a different one. Can you see, colleagues? And now look at what is written on the children's side of it. It's the exact same thing. The dates and the headings and the textbooks are exactly the same. Right? Where it's going to differ is you are going to give them a summary of the content that you taught for the day, and then you give them 3 or 4 questions that will allow them to show you that they've understood or they've not understood. Are we okay so far, colleagues? Can I get an indication from somebody?
Yes, Mr. Abdullah.
Thank you, ma'am. Nora, I was hoping
Yes,
also.
Minister.
Thank you, ma'am. Much appreciated,
Yes,
ma'am.
we okay. We good.
All right, so allow me to go on to the next slide, and then if we need to, we'll pause. So can you see there, colleagues? So once you've given the children the content and the questions, if you plan well, you can check and do corrections on the same day, so that the next day when they come, you start off with a brand new topic or the subtopic, as it were. Okay, colleagues. If you don't finish the corrections on today, then when they come back tomorrow, the first thing that they do is do corrections of the previous day and a small revision of what was done yesterday, so that you can continue and build. And if you look at what is written here, together with the previous slide, so from the 1st of August, you did input and output. 2nd of August, you did the same thing. 3rd of August, you did the same thing. 4th of August, you did the same thing. The only thing that you've changed is what is the type of appliance that you have used. And this, colleagues, is what we call depth of content. So now you're teaching them the skill of how to identify what is the input energy that every appliance needs, and when it's changed, what output energy do we get? So this is drummed into them to such an extent that they now have a clear understanding. And now look, colleagues, when we say it's life-based, which of these children don't know about those things? The torch, the radio, the bicycle, the drum, the hairdryer, the car. all of them use these things on a daily basis. So now we're making science real, colleagues. All right. So, and it says there, explain in as much detail as possible what you as the teacher are going to do. So in your lesson plans, we're not so important that you write down all the content. You can even have a content summary, you can even have a content reference page number on the textbook. But you need to explain what is it that you're going to do. First, you will introduce the topic by showing the children what is a radio and what is a torch and how does it work. So in as much detail as possible. And then you need to include all those questions and activity sheets. So what happens, colleagues, once that is done? And here I would like some interaction, please, colleagues. I would like some interaction, colleagues. There are 4 bullets there with 4 questions. Can I ask somebody to identify the first question? Is it a lower order question? Is it a higher order question? Or is it a middle order question? Anyone? Go ahead and unmute and just identify, colleagues. Anyone?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
I
afternoon,
would
ma'am.
say the first bullet point would be a middle order question because it's not really challenging, it's straight to the point.
So very good, ma'am. If it's not really challenging and it's straight to the point, that means you're asking the children to simply recall what was taught in the class. Are we agreed? Colleagues?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Ma'am, can I just ask you to identify yourself, please?
It's Katlego from SBSM.
Perfect. Ma'am Katlego, so
Yes, sir.
this is exactly what we're saying. If you're asking questions like what, where, why, how, and when, those are all simply lower order questions. As long as the children don't have to think about how to structure the answer, they just have to simply remember what they taught or what they were taught this past day or in the morning or whatever it may be, and just give you a very simple recall answer, then that makes it so question 1 and question 2 are both lower order questions. So now let's look at question number 2 or rather the third bullet and the fourth bullet. Can I then ask anybody else besides ma'am from SBSM to tell me which is the higher order question and which is the middle order question? Anyone, colleagues? Ma'am from Zimbabwe, you go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am, you
Hi.
can go ahead. You are
Yes,
from
I'm
which
from
school?
Zimbabwe.
Yes, ma'am,
From
go ahead.
Zimbabwe. Yes. I think the fourth question is in higher order because it requires learners to think and use their own opinions. They should show their own understanding and not recall or get information from what they learned. It's requiring them to state their own opinions. And it also requires individual learners because they've got different opinions. So it shows which learner understands what in what state.
Very good, ma'am. That is an excellent, very comprehensive answer. So as soon as you see something like, in your opinion, or elaborate, that means now you're asking the children to make an informed decision, not only to recall or to remember what they were taught, but you're also asking them to apply themselves a little bit later on, or apply themselves to a different set of scenarios. So if we look at that, then look at the third question. Besides light, what other output energy is given by the lamp? So when you give them this, the diagram there, the diagram is there to help, but also it allows them to put it into perspective. So we know that if you switch on a lamp for long enough, colleagues, can somebody give me an answer to that question? I know it's a middle order question. It's a middle order question. So it says there, besides light, what other output energy do you think is given by the lamp? Can anybody give me an answer?
Heat energy, sir.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you both the
Heat
colleagues.
energy.
Lovely, ma'am. Thank you very much. Now, let me ask you something. How will the child know it's heat energy if you didn't teach them that?
They will not know, say. And I think also this requires practicality because they need to actually touch the light to feel the heat.
There you go.
It's incorrect or wrong.
Excellent, ma'am. This is exactly right, colleagues. So can you see now the middle order questions also relies on content that was given to them during the day or during that period, but it's something that they have to build on a little bit more. So these are some of the type of questions. So I gave you as an example, and what we need to do is, in every one of our lessons, we should give them 2 or 3 lower order questions and at least 1 middle and 1 higher order question for every single lesson. This will get them to have practice so that when we do give it to them, it works both ways. It allows us to have practice to set those middle and higher order questions, and then we get more familiar and more better at doing that. But it also allows the children much more opportunity to answer those questions correctly, so that when it does finally come to the exams, then they know how to do that. Now, when you do your analysis and you set a good question paper, and that question paper has got 50% lower, 35% middle, and 15% higher order questions, and when the children do well, and you do the analysis of results, then that is a true reflection of what is happening in your classes. And this is something that we need to strive to get. And it will not come immediately, colleagues, but we have to start somewhere. All right. And what myself and Memnora would also like to remind you is that you need to go and look at the resources that we make available, whether it be the Google link with the resources, or the textbook, or the provincial lesson plans, or for that matter, the TIMS books. The TIMS books, these questions that I got here, question number 3 and question number 4, I actually took them from the TIMS booklet, you see. So it's important if you got those terms, and not if you got it, you should have it, because it is in my Google Drive, and it's in the link that I sent you. All right, colleagues, so I don't want to spend too much more time on that one. I just want to talk about
Mr. Abdullah,
ma'am.
before you proceed with the next slide, there's a hand from Zibambele.
Ma'am from Zibambele, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't put my hand down before. Let me just lower my hand.
No problem, it's an old hand. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to continue, Ma'am Nora.
Okay, Mr. Abdullah, thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, we're not far from finishing now. So once we do this, colleagues, all right, once we've planned well, we've prepared ourselves, we sorted ourselves out in terms of activity sheets, worksheets, corrections, those type of things. Now we did our assessment. The children wrote the test, they did the investigation or the experiment or the mini-pet for that matter. And now we need to understand how this works. So look at this next slide. We're talking about possible intervention strategies. Colleagues, it's very, very important to know. Strangely enough, I know we don't have a lot of time. And I know we're all pressurized. In grade 4, this is going to be even further compounded because our children have never done Nstech as a specific subject, right? So if we are just going to take it for granted that our children know what we're going to be teaching them, then they're going to be lost from the start. So it's very, very important to plan a preliminary test. Oh, sorry, my apologies, a diagnostic analysis test. So if you can, and not if you can, but you should try to do it as far as possible. At the beginning of every term, you know what the content is that's supposed to be taught. Give them few questions on each of those topics and see how much can they remember from the previous year. So for grade 4, it's more about testing their general knowledge because they don't have these concepts that have been taught previously, right? So it's important for us to do diagnostic analysis for your own self so that you know, because that speaks to what you need to plan and prepare for as the term goes. by. As a way of getting the children to do better in the test. And again, this is strictly guidelines, colleagues. It's recommendations. If you have the time, give them what we call a mock test. So it's a prelim test before the formal test. You can have as many as you like. Remember, and we'll talk about it in the next 2 slides. Our program of assessment means for grade 4 and 5 and 6. For this term, we only have 1 practical activity and 1 test. That is not merely enough opportunity for our learners to do well. If they're just going to do 1 test, you'll find that, they don't do so well. So if you give them maybe every 2 weeks, you give them a test, a small Yana test, you don't even have to give them marks, but it gives you an idea of do they understand what you've been teaching them for those past 2 weeks. And then it is added practice so that when it comes to the proper test that you give them for marks, it becomes a little bit easier for them. If you find your learners struggling, look at bullet number 3. If you find your learners struggling, colleagues, it's in fact, bullet number 3 and number 4, as well as number 5, is they're all interlinked. You cannot, if the child you gave the child 5 questions, right? You gave the child 5 questions, he got all 5 questions wrong. Now you're shouting at the child, why did he get it wrong? Go and do it again. But we didn't guide the child as to how he's supposed to answer it. So you gave him the same 5 questions to redo it again. He comes back, the same 5 questions, he's got it wrong again. You understand what I'm saying, colleagues? Sometimes children need a little bit extra help. So instead of giving him the same 5 questions, give him 3 questions that are slightly easier and different from the 5 that you gave the rest of the class. So everybody did the 5 questions, and some few of them didn't get those 5 questions right. Those are the children that need intervention. You can't keep on giving them a new worksheet, but this worksheet is exactly the same like the one that the rest of the class had, because they were not coping with that one. Do you understand, colleagues? So you need to adapt your work. And I know it's difficult, and I know you have lots of children in your class, but this is where our planning and our preparation comes in. So have, and it doesn't have to be done every single day. Honestly, and this is why I do realize just how much work it is. So, but every now and again, give those that are struggling, and you'll only know this if you do your analysis of results, right? Give them a slightly less complicated or something that's easier for them to understand so that they have additional chances. Okay, and then we know that our children will never ever give out things in on time. And we ourselves are under pressure. When I say extra time, if you give the children a day or 2 to do certain questions, you can't give little Abdullah that's sitting in a corner 1 week. Everybody else had one day, right? So it must be composite, and it should suit the level of the child. Because if you allow all the children extra or additional time or extending deadlines, then when do you finish? So it has to be something that you've carefully thought about to say, look, the marks are due on such and such a date. If I do my work on the 2nd of August, and I know little Abdullah is not going to do well, and he's got 3 other partners in his group that need maybe a day more, then within reason. But we cannot have extended deadlines that put us under pressure so that now you don't hand in your marks to the SSMs or the admin person. So please, this is all part of our, it says there, it's quite big and bold. All the above and other intervention strategies require effective planning and preparation by us as educators, colleagues. All right, so I'm going to go forward. So we're almost at the end. There we have our school-based assessments. And this is our one, highlighted in blue on the right-hand side. So it's the where it says minimum marks. Colleagues, we're done. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number of tasks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are completed. That was for term 1 and term 2. We're now on this term in the yellow block. We are in the yellow block, all of us. Grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. We are in the yellow block, and it says there, practical task. Again, colleagues, And I'm sorry to say it, but and I hope it's not us that are present here today, but I'm still going to find colleagues that are going to phone me to say, Mr. Abdullah, I did a mini-PET in term 1 and term 2. Do I need to do another mini-PET now? Colleagues, the rules and the policy is clear. If you have done one mini-PET for the entire year, for the year, you don't have to do it again. But you must have some kind of practical task. So if, for example, you're talking about energy and energy transfer for this past 2.5 weeks, you can give the children a practical task based on what you have done. Or for that matter, if you want to wait for the next 2 weeks where you go to energy around us, and then you give them one practical activity that deals with all the work that you did over the past 5 weeks, where it's energy and energy transfer and energy around us, and you give them a practical task where they have to build something or they have to study something, or then that's different, colleagues, okay? And then obviously the written test is based on all the work that you have covered up until they write the test, colleagues. So again, and I want to just use this as an example, you cannot give them a test and test them something that you have not done in class. More importantly, if it is not in the RATP, colleagues, and you give it to them in the test, then that test is invalid. So please be very, very careful. When you're setting your test, make sure you set a test that is policy-based and policy-driven. Only content that is outlined in the RATP, the Recovery Annual Teaching Plan, can be assessed in the formal written exam or the formal written test at the end of the term. Colleagues, again, the minimum mark is 15 for the practical task. If you feel you want to give them a practical task out of 30 or 60 or 50 for that matter, your admin person is able to adjust the mark allocation, not the weighting, the mark allocation. Your admin person can change that. The same thing for the test. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. How much can you test if you give the child a mark out of 20 or a test out of 20 and you allow the child to write for 1 hour for 20 marks? You're setting that child up for disaster and for failure when he goes to grade 5 and grade 6, colleagues. So I would suggest to you that if you're going to give it a 1 hour test, increase the marks from 20 to 40. Even if you needs be, you can even make it 50. Again, you just go to the admin person that is busy on SSMs and tell them, please, you can change the mark on SSMs. My test is going to be out of 50. Very, very important, colleagues, and I didn't write it down here, is that your test and your practical task needs to go to your HOD for moderation well before you administer it to the learners. Again, I'm going to say, colleagues, all your formal assessment tasks must be quality assured, being moderated by the HOD. Again, you can adjust the marks, but we need to make sure that we have the correct balancing in terms of the cognitive levels, as I've discussed with you just previously. And then obviously in our fourth term, we only have the last exam, which is out of minimum marks 30, but now here, remember, we are testing them both term 3 and term 4 work. If things change, colleagues, if things change, and this is as per circular 1 of 2020, or is it 2021? Colleagues, if something changes in terms of the balance of content, so term 3 has to be 60% of the content from term 3 and 40% of the content from term 4. And I can tell you safely that this is checked at the highest level. My 2 ladies from grade 6 who did the provincial paper, I had to sit and make sure that I had the balance, and I checked against the RATP to see that indeed they had covered 60% of the question paper dealt with only content from term 3 and 40% dealt with the content from term 4. All right, so colleagues, so while you're too busy and when you're ready to set your test, please keep that in mind. Since my computer is frozen, I'm just going to try and see what is going on. My apologies for that, colleagues. All right, so while we're waiting for that one, when we talk about innovation, colleagues, I just want to put this into our chat group here. What I'm putting in here now is our register, but not only our register, it's also a feedback page. So if you go to your chat box now, as we are concluding, please access that chat. I'm sure. Can you give me an indication, anybody? I've put in the link for. All right, Ma'am Witness. Again, I'll talk to that just now. Please check if you can access the register. And while I'm concluding, we can make a plan to just complete that one. Colleagues, if you give me just a minute, I'd like to download the register, the register from Teams. We are 70 people, and I'm hoping it is downloaded. Perfect. All right, so as we continue, colleagues, let me just go to this one. Colleagues, can you give me an indication? Did anybody manage to open the register?
Yes, it is opening, Mr. Abdullah.
Perfect. So it will take you literally 3 or 4 minutes while we're wrapping up. So there we go. So in terms of the innovation, colleagues, this is something that I spoke about last term as well. Just to reiterate and to consolidate what I told you last time, when you get this, when you get the Google Drive in your email boxes or as part of the school's email or whatever it is, if you go to the top where it says HTTPS and you right click on your mouse and you say open hyperlink, then it will bring you to this page here where it says My Drive Nstech Resources. And when you click on Nstech Resources, then you get the rest of this here. So you'll see that it says Siyavula Teacher's Guide, Siyavula Learner's Books, Nstech Resources, and then I've separated the grades. You are welcome to go into any of these things. So if you then click, and if you go to grade 4, if you just go to grade 4, then you'll find that this is what comes up. All right, colleagues, but there's nothing stopping you from navigating the entire Google Drive where you'll only be able to go to based on the link that I gave you. Please use that, and it's going to be difficult if you've never used it before, but there's no time like the present. If you've got some free time, go into the link, go and check if there's anything else that or any information that you think you'll be able to use. Right, so let me just go back again. So you go to the link that's right on the top there. You can copy and paste it in your browser, or you can just right click and you can say open hyperlink, whichever you like. You'll see it will take you to Nstech Resources. And when you click on Nstech Resources, it opens up a whole lot of other files and folders and just other worksheets, as you'll see there. All right, so there's monitoring tools, there's the National Assessment Circular, the one that I was just talking about, number 1 of 2021. There's a lot of other things that we've been speaking to over the past year, 2 years, 3 years. It's all in those folders and files, and you are welcome to download and check up on those. More importantly, the terms books are also in there. The provincial lesson plans are also in there. There's blank lesson plans, exemplars there. So please, colleagues, make use of this. We're really trying our best to service our clients by providing, we always say that, I go to schools and sometimes myself and Mem Nora, the teachers are complaining that we don't get communication from the admin person and the emails never reach us and those type of things. Very important to note, colleagues. Number one, if you change your email address, it's important for you to inform us, both myself and Nora. Number one, very important. Number two, if you know, for example, we did our program of action for this term. So remember, colleagues, I must tell you that, okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later, the science fair. So if you do not keep us updated in terms of your WhatsApp numbers and your change of email addresses and that, and you don't receive communication. Colleagues, unfortunately, it's not anybody's fault, but these things happen. So the same thing happened to me today. We had our Olympiad for grade 6. We had our Olympiad for grade 6, and I must say, my sincere thanks to Robertson Primary for hosting us in such an awesome way. We managed to sort out everything, and we had a good result, and children were happy, and whatever it may be. But at the beginning of it, I had a school that came there, and their learners were not supposed to be there. And ma'am, that was their shame. I felt so bad, but ma'am told me the very same thing, Mr. Abdullah, I'm not getting any communication whatsoever. So it's important, colleagues, on the WhatsApp group, if you don't see something coming for a while, and you know that there's a program that's supposed to be happening, just WhatsApp me privately, WhatsApp Ma'am Nora privately. You're welcome to do that. In fact, I must apologize. Somebody tried to call me as late as last night on a Sunday evening, and I didn't take the call because obviously it was after hours, and I felt that, if it was very pressing, the colleague would have phoned me this morning. But please, during office hours from 8 o'clock to 4:30, any day, Monday to Friday, we will definitely answer our phone, number one. And number two, if we are busy in a meeting like this, we will definitely phone you back to find out if there's anything urgent. So please, I would like to appeal to colleagues to become much more proactive to do what needs to be done. All right, colleagues. So I don't want to belabor the point, and then it's our second to last slide. This is something that is becoming increasingly difficult in all our classrooms. Colleagues, I must tell you that myself and Mem Nora have to report against these deliverables here. All right. So the provincial coordinator has requested that we as Nstech teachers try to give the children spelling tests on a regular basis. So, and we know our subject is English based. I have never seen a natural sciences and technology textbook in the vernacular. So all our content is all based in English. So if our children are not going to have every opportunity to do well in English, how are we expecting them to do well in natural sciences and technology? So we request that, make your classroom print rich. Have charts and words on the boards and on the bulletin boards and on the walls and on the windows. Try and make it, conducive to good learning. And then also, it's as much as we don't have time, allow the children to read sometimes. If you're giving them a practical task and they got an activity sheet, there's one little Johnny there in the class, or Lisejo or Tando, or one of those that like to read and they want to show off their reading skills. Allow them to read. Even it doesn't have to be reading for the whole period or even, 5-6 minutes, even just half a minute. Stand up and read and then change often so that you give others a chance to also showcase how well they read. Encourage them to read. And it's very, very important. And then remember, I told you about the weekly informal tests. This is not, colleagues, to say that it is mandatory or compulsory. We're saying that if you give them informal tests on what you've covered for this week, then you know what is it that where your starting point is next week, but it also gives them an additional chance to say, when the test comes, I've already got these questions in the back of my mind. So these are just some of the things when you talk about language across the curriculum, colleagues. Myself and Nora have to answer. And at this point, I can safely say from the beginning of this year, I've only seen two, and I won't mention their names, but I've seen two schools that actually have a vocabulary book in place where they give the children a spelling test on a regular basis. So it's something that we need to think about as we're going forward. And you just deal with vocabulary that you're dealing with for the week. So you give them a list of maybe 10 words on a Monday, and you read the words and you explain the words to them, and you say, guys, you must learn these words because come Friday, I'm going to test you on these words. And it doesn't take you long to give them 10 words to write down. And it's part of your informal written activities, colleagues. All right. Even though it's a spelling test, it was done in class, it was marked in class, it becomes an informal written activity. So colleagues, now it's your time. Now it's your time. If you have not, or if you've got something that's pressing and you need to ask, you can, and then we'll go on to any other business, and then we will close. Colleagues, Mem Nora, you can recognize hands, please, if you don't mind.
There's a hand, Munyake AL.
Okay, colleague, please unmute and ask. Colleague Munyake?
Yes. Yes, how are you, sir?
Good,
Thank
thanks, and
you.
you, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. It seems we may be having a technical challenge. Ma'am, if at any time you are back, you're welcome to just unmute and,
Yes.
and ask away.
Are you with me, sir?
Yes, now I can hear you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes, the register.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'm with
I
you.
put,
I'm
I put the,
unable to open the register.
oh no.
Yes, it says I'm not an attendant at all.
That is strange because you're talking to me and it says you are not an attendant.
Yes,
All right.
I've been trying several times.
All right, no problem, ma'am. What I will do is, if you just send me a small WhatsApp message, I will send the link to you on the WhatsApp.
Okay,
I think that will be best. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The second hand is from Mem Lintumba.
Okay, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Abdullah.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm well, thanks, and you?
Good, good. Go ahead, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify something when it comes to the lesson plan and verification of work. At our school, we were then told earlier this term that every time we do a new activities, the kids have to rule off and write the date again. Is that how it's supposed to be, or we can just keep writing the topic and the content reference again, or do we have to keep, like, for example, if I see them for 2 periods, do they have to rule off, write the date again for the second period with the content reference and the topic?
Look, ma'am, it's a school-based anomaly, but I would suggest that you do. I would suggest that you do because it doesn't really take long to rule off. If you're going to allow them to write the date and the heading again, then, and I tell you why, because from a manager's perspective, it's much more easier for us, myself, Mem Nora, your HOD, deputy, the principal, to identify where one activity starts and one activity, and that activity ends. So instead of looking for a date, we look for markers, and one of the markers is the ruling off. So if, okay, maybe in grade 4, it may take 2 or 3 or 4 seconds extra, but I would rather suggest you do that so that you have a more accurate reporting when it comes to your curriculum coverage. Okay, ma'am?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am Nora, anybody? Yeah?
Yes, Mr. Abdullah. The next hand is from Zibambele.
Ma'am from Zibambele, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. The register, I'm new to this thing. I don't even know where to find it, and I haven't really signed it. And another thing, I would like to request that you send this whole, what do you call it, slideshow, because some of my colleagues are not present, so they don't know what took place and what transpired, and they will need in this information. I did take some notes, but maybe they will not understand clearly what was said and not.
All right, no problem. So, ma'am, what normally happens is we will send the presentation to all the schools on our database once we have concluded all the presentations. So what happens is today was only for grade 4, but if you're teaching grade 5, the only slides that will differ is the slides where we had the curriculum coverage. Okay, so all those colleagues that did attend today, you don't have to attend tomorrow. But if you didn't attend today, you can attend tomorrow or Thursday. But at the end of Thursday, once we have concluded